Once upon a time, in a modest town surrounded by dusty roads and noisy markets, there lived a young woman named Anala. She was 25 years old, tall and broad-shouldered, with muscles shaped by hardship rather than comfort. Many people said she looked like a strong man, but she was fully a woman, firm in body, firm in heart, and firm in will. Her strength was not something she chose. It was something life forced upon her. Nala lived in a small, worn house at the edge of the town with her parents. Her mother was gentle and soft-spoken, a woman whose patience was deeper than words. Her father, however, was very different. He was extremely lazy, heavy in body, and slow in movement. He had no work, no trade, and no desire to search for one. Every day he sat in the house or outside under a tree, eating whatever food was brought before him. He did not struggle for the family. He did not worry about tomorrow. He simply ate. From a young age, Nala understood a painful truth. If she did not work, they would not eat. While other girls her age were learning crafts, marriage skills, or trading small goods, Nala carried burdens meant for grown men. At dawn, before the call of the market fully rose, she would tie her wrapper tightly, stretch her arms, and walk toward the busy trading center. There, she worked as a laborer. She carried heavy sacks of grain on her shoulders. She lifted large iron containers. She loaded and unloaded goods for merchants, who needed raw strength more than kindness. Her palms were rough, her back ached every night, but she never complained. When she was paid, she did not waste a single coin. She went straight to the market, bought food, and returned home. Many times, by the time she arrived, she would find her father already eating. Sometimes he would not even wait to greet her. He would eat in silence, full and satisfied, while Nala stood tired and hungry. That sight burned her heart. One evening, after a particularly long day, Nala dropped the sack she was carrying and sat heavily on a wooden stool. Her father was chewing loudly, his plate almost empty. "Baba," she said, her voice low but firm, "this eating is too much." Her father froze. Slowly, he lifted his eyes and stared at her with anger. "Are you teaching me how to live?" he shouted. "I am your father." Her mother rushed between them, trying to calm the air. But the damage was already done. Nala stood up, her chest rising and falling. She said nothing more. She simply walked outside and sat alone under the darkening sky. Despite everything, she loved her parents. They were all she had. No siblings, no relatives close enough to help. Just the three of them against the world. Then, one season, sickness entered their house like an uninvited guest. First, her father fell ill. He could no longer sit outside or shout. He lay on a mat, sweating and weak. A few days later, her mother also became seriously sick. The house that once echoed with noise and complaints became quiet and heavy. Nala stopped working. She sat by their side day and night, wiping their faces, giving them water, whispering prayers, and crying silently when she thought they were asleep. Fear wrapped around her heart. If she lost them, she would be truly alone. One night, as the lamp flickered weakly, her mother called her closer. "Nala," she whispered. Nala held her mother's hand tightly, tears falling freely now. "My daughter," her mother said with effort, "this sickness, I will not rise from it." Nala shook her head violently. "No, Mama. You will get better. Baba will get better. You cannot leave me." Her mother smiled faintly and squeezed her hand. "My child, death is a truth that no one escapes," she said. "But listen to me carefully. Hold on to trust. No matter how harsh life becomes, do not break. Continue seeking lawful sustenance. Never let bitterness destroy your character." Nala cried harder. "Mama, Baba, do not die and leave me." Her mother placed her other hand over Nala's and whispered, "We all return to Allah. Be patient." Not long after both her parents passed away, the house fell silent forever. For 30 days, Nala remained inside, mourning. She ate little, slept less, and spoke to no one. The strength that once carried sacks now carried grief. But when the mourning period ended, Nala stood up, washed her face, and looked at her reflection. "I cannot die while alive," she told herself. She returned to the world, not as a laborer this time, but as something new. In the outskirts of the town stood a traditional wrestling arena. where physical contests were held under strict rules, without injustice or humiliation. Nala began to train there. Her body, already hardened by years of labor, adapted quickly. Her discipline was unmatched. Her focus was sharp. When disrespectful young men approached her with shameless words, she warned them once. If they crossed the line, she defended herself firmly, never with cruelty, only with strength and dignity. Soon she entered competitions. She did not lose. Match after match, she won. Her name spread across the town and beyond. People spoke of a woman who never fell, a woman forged by hardship, a woman whose strength came from patience. And so Nala's journey into destiny began. Nala's first official match in the wrestling arena drew only a small crowd. Many people came out of curiosity, not belief. A woman fighting was unusual, and a woman facing men was almost unheard of. Some whispered that it was a joke. Others shook their heads, convinced she would be defeated quickly and sent home in shame. Nala did not listen. She wrapped her hands carefully, tightened the cloth around her waist, and stepped into the arena with calm eyes. Her heart was steady. She was not there to prove pride. She was there to survive. The bell sounded. Her opponent was taller, confident, and smiling as if the outcome was already decided. He moved carelessly, underestimating her. Nala waited. She remembered the sacks she had carried, the hunger she had swallowed, the nights she cried alone. When he rushed toward her, she shifted her weight, used his force against him, and brought him to the ground. The crowd fell silent. Moments later, the match ended. Nala stood, breathing hard but steady, while her opponent lay defeated, not injured but humbled. The judge raised her hand. From that day, people stopped laughing. Her second match came 3 days later. This time, the crowd was larger. Her opponent was experienced, cautious, and respected. The fight lasted longer. Sweat ran down Nala's face. Her arms burned. Her legs trembled. At one point, she nearly fell, but she remembered her mother's words, "Do not break." She gathered herself, found her balance, and fought with patience instead of anger. She won again. With every victory, her reputation grew. Merchants spoke of her in the market. Elders discussed her strength after prayers. Children followed her path, calling her name with excitement. Yet Nala remained quiet. She trained, prayed, and lived simply. She did not insult others. She did not boast. But not everyone admired her. Some young men, filled with jealousy and arrogance, approached her with disrespectful words. They mocked her strength and questioned her place. Nala warned them calmly. When warnings were ignored, she defended herself firmly, never exceeding what was necessary. Her discipline became as famous as her strength. Soon, no one dared cross her boundaries. Within months, Nala became undefeated. She faced opponents from nearby towns and distant villages. Some were older, some were stronger, some were known champions. Yet none could overcome her. Her victories were not easy. Her body bore bruises. Her muscles ached. Some nights, she slept on pain. But she rose every morning. News of her achievements reached the palace. The king of the land was a wise ruler who valued courage, discipline, and justice. When reports of an undefeated woman warrior reached him, he ordered that she be summoned, not to test her, but to understand her. Messengers found Nala at the training ground. When they spoke, she listened respectfully. She washed, dressed modestly, and followed them without fear. Inside the palace, the king studied her carefully. He saw strength, yes, but more importantly, he saw restraint. "You have brought honor to this land," the king said. "Your discipline has silenced mockery. Your patience has taught respect." He ordered gifts to be brought, gold, clothing, and provisions. Nala accepted them humbly, thanking him. From that day, she was no longer poor. She used her wealth wisely, helping those in need and living with balance. Yet destiny was not finished with her. One day, the king announced a great challenge. 10 strong men, champions from different regions, would face Nala in a series of matches. If she defeated them all, she would be granted half of the town's wealth and authority. In addition, she would be married honorably to the king's son, a young man of 20 years named Kalu. Known for his good character and calm nature, the announcement shook the land. Some feared for her life. Others doubted her limits. Nala did not speak immediately. She prayed. She reflected. She remembered her journey from laborer to warrior. Finally, she accepted. Preparations began. The wrestling arena was decorated like never before. Banners flew, elders gathered, scholars observed. Families traveled from far and near. The atmosphere was tense, filled with excitement and doubt. On the day of the contest, the sun rose hot and bright. Nala entered the arena with steady steps. The first opponent was aggressive, attacking quickly. The struggle was fierce. Dust rose. The crowd gasped. Nala was pushed, scratched, nearly overpowered. But she endured. With effort and focus, she won. The second opponent was heavier. The third faster. Each match drained her strength. Her breathing became harder. Her muscles screamed. By the fifth match, her body was swollen from blows. Pain clouded her vision. Yet she did not fall. Between matches, she sat quietly, drinking water, whispering prayers, steadying her heart. The crowd watched in awe. Never had they seen such resilience. By the 10th opponent, Nala could barely lift her arms. Her body was bruised, her face swollen. The opponent advanced confidently, believing victory was certain. The fight was long, brutal, and exhausting. At one moment, Nala fell to one knee. Silence gripped the arena. She stood. With her final strength, she used technique, patience, and balance, not rage. The opponent fell. The arena exploded with sound. Nala collapsed to the ground, victorious. The king stood, astonished. Never had he witnessed such determination. He ordered immediate care for her injuries and declared her the winner. True to his word, he granted her half the town's wealth and authority. He honored her with marriage to his son, Kalu, conducted with dignity and respect. Nala's life changed completely. She lived in peace, respected by the people, loved by her husband, and remembered her past with gratitude, not bitterness. She never forgot where she came from. She never misused her power. Her story became a lesson. Strength guided by patience is unstoppable. The celebration after Nala's victory lasted for days. Drums echoed through the town, food was shared freely, and people spoke of her name with pride. For many, she was no longer just a champion, she was a symbol of perseverance. Yet for Nala herself, joy came quietly. Her body healed slowly, her bruises fading one by one, but her heart remained grounded. Marriage to Prince Kalu was arranged with care and honor. There was no excess, no arrogance. The ceremony followed proper customs, filled with prayers, gratitude, and respect. Kalu proved to be exactly as people described him, calm, thoughtful, and humble. He did not see Nala as a trophy of strength, but as a partner chosen by destiny. From the first day they lived together, balance ruled their home. Kalu listened. Nala spoke honestly. Decisions were made through discussion, not command. Despite her fame and new status, Nala never forgot her past. She still rose early, not to carry sacks, but to oversee the affairs entrusted to her. The king had given her responsibility over half the town's resources, and she took this duty seriously. She learned governance with the same discipline she had learned wrestling. Nala sat with elders, listened to traders, and heard the complaints of the poor. She made sure weights in the market were fair. She punished injustice without cruelty. She rewarded honesty without favoritism. Slowly, the town changed. Trust returned where fear once lived. But power always attracts envy. Some men who once mocked her now bowed before her, their smiles forced. Others whispered behind closed doors, questioning how a woman could hold such authority. A few influential figures, threatened by her fairness, began plotting quietly. Rumors spread. They said Nala used force to gain power. They said she humiliated men. They said she would soon turn against the king. None of it was true, but lies move faster than truth. Kalu noticed the tension. One evening, as they sat together after prayer, he spoke gently. "My wife," he said, "your strength defeated bodies. Now it must defeat hearts." Nala understood. Strength alone could not silence jealousy. Wisdom was needed. She began meeting openly with critics, listening patiently even when words were sharp. She explained her actions clearly, reminded them of justice, and invited them to witness her decisions. Some softened, others remained hardened. Still, she did not change her path. Then came the drought. Rain failed for weeks, crops weakened, hunger returned to the edges of the town, fear crept into faces. People looked to the palace and to Nala. This was her true test. She ordered the town's reserves to be opened. Food was distributed fairly. Prices were controlled. The wealthy were encouraged to give, reminded that charity strengthens communities. She herself reduced palace expenses and lived simply, setting an example. The people saw this. Trust grew stronger than rumors. However, the drought worsened. Supplies ran dangerously low. One night, advisors suggested closing the gates and protecting only the inner town. Nala refused. "No soul will be abandoned," she said firmly. "Strength that protects only itself is weakness." She organized work groups, digging irrigation paths, repairing wells, and storing water wisely. She worked alongside them, her hands dirty once more, reminding everyone that leadership is service. Slowly, clouds gathered. When rain finally fell, people cried with relief. Fields recovered. Life returned. In the mosques, prayers of gratitude filled the air. From that day, even her enemies fell silent. The king, watching from a distance, saw that Nala's greatest victory was not in the arena, but in restraint, patience, and mercy. He called her to the palace and spoke openly. "You have ruled with justice," he said. "You have honored power without abusing it." He increased her responsibilities, not as a reward, but as trust. Years passed. Nala and Kalu were blessed with children, raised with discipline and kindness. Nala taught them strength without arrogance. Kalu taught them humility without weakness. Together, they built a home rooted in faith and balance. Nala never returned to the wrestling arena, not because she feared defeat, but because she understood seasons change. Her story, however, remained alive. Parents told it to their children. Elders used it as counsel. Young girls looked at her and learned that dignity and patience can shape destiny. And when people spoke of Nala, they no longer spoke only of her strength. They spoke of her character. Time moved forward quietly, like a river that hides its depth beneath a calm surface. For many years, peace settled over the town. Trade flourished, families lived without fear, and justice became a habit rather than an exception. Nala fulfilled her responsibilities with steady devotion, never forgetting that leadership was a trust from Allah, not a crown to be worn with pride. Yet life does not test a person only once. As Nala's influence grew, so did the reach of the town. Caravans from distant regions began passing through. With them came strangers, some honest, others driven by greed. Among them were men who saw opportunity not in trade, but in manipulation. A group of wealthy merchants arrived, claiming they wished to invest in the town's growth. They spoke politely, offered gifts, and praised Nala's leadership. Many officials welcomed them warmly, but Nala observed quietly. She listened more than she spoke. Something felt wrong. Their promises were large, but their details were unclear. They requested control over certain resources and exemptions from rules meant to protect the poor. When Nala asked direct questions, their answers shifted. When she requested written agreements, they delayed. She refused their proposal. The merchants smiled, bowed, and left peacefully, but bitterness followed them. Soon after, trouble began. Prices in surrounding regions dropped suddenly, affecting local traders. False complaints reached the palace, accusing Nala's administration of favoritism. Some officials, tempted by bribes, began acting dishonestly. The balance Nala had built started to shake. Kalu noticed the strain on her face. "These trials feel heavier than wrestling 10 men, he said one night. Nala nodded. Because fists are honest, intentions are not. She called for a thorough review of town affairs. Corrupt officials were removed after clear proof. Justice was applied carefully without anger or haste. Some people were unhappy, others were relieved, but truth always leaves marks. Then a greater test came. A neighboring territory accused Nala's town of interfering in their trade routes. Tension rose. Voices called for confrontation. Warriors prepared. Fear returned to the air. Nala requested dialogue. She traveled, accompanied by elders and scholars, not soldiers. At the meeting, accusations were loud and harsh. Some men tried to provoke her, reminding her of her past, questioning her authority as a woman. She remained silent until the noise faded. Then she spoke calmly, presenting records, witnesses, and clear evidence. She acknowledged mistakes where they existed and corrected falsehoods where they did not. She reminded them that conflict destroys more than it gains. Her composure disarmed them. After long discussion, peace was restored. Trade resumed. The crisis ended without bloodshed. When she returned home, the people welcomed her with relief and gratitude. But Nala did not celebrate. She retreated into reflection. She knew something important. Strength without constant self-check leads to downfall. That night, she stood alone under the sky, remembering her parents. Her mother's words echoed again. "Hold on to trust. Do not break." She realized that trials never truly leave. They only change form. Years later, the king grew old and weak. His health declined and responsibilities shifted. Many expected Kalu to take a stronger role in governance. He did, but always in consultation with Nala. Together, they ensured continuity, not chaos. When the king finally passed away, the town mourned deeply. Leadership transitioned smoothly, guided by justice rather than ambition. Nala did not seek more power. She accepted only what was necessary to maintain balance. As time passed, she began preparing the next generation. Young men and women came to her for guidance. She taught them discipline, patience, and faith. She reminded them that honor is earned through conduct, not force. She warned them against arrogance disguised as confidence. Her children grew strong in character. None were pushed into roles they could not carry. Each was guided toward purpose with care. One evening, a young girl approached her timidly. "They say you were once feared," the girl said. "Were you never afraid?" Nala smiled gently. "I was afraid many times," she replied. "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is choosing what is right despite it." That lesson spread faster than her old victories ever had. In her later years, Nala stepped back from public duties. She advised quietly, intervened rarely, and trusted the system she helped build. The town no longer depended on her presence alone. That, she knew, was true success. She spent more time in prayer, gratitude filling her heart. She had known hunger and wealth, loneliness and love, struggle and peace. Through it all, she remained anchored. And when people spoke of her now, they spoke softly with respect. They said, "She was strong when strength was needed. She was gentle when gentleness mattered. She feared Allah, and that was enough." As the years passed, Nala entered a season of life that was quieter but deeper. The noise of the arena, the tension of politics, and the weight of public judgment slowly faded into memory. She did not disappear. She simply stepped aside, allowing others to stand where she once stood. The town continued to function smoothly. Laws were respected. Markets remained fair. Disputes were resolved with wisdom. This was Nala's silent victory. Systems that worked even without her constant presence. She spent most of her days within her home and the nearby mosque, dividing her time between worship, reflection, and teaching. People still came to her, but now they came not with fear or excitement, but with trust. They sought advice on marriage, leadership, patience, and hardship. Nala never rushed her words. She had learned that silence, when guided by wisdom, speaks louder than commands. One afternoon, a group of young men visited her. They were strong, confident, and eager to prove themselves. They asked her about power, about how to rise quickly and leave a mark on the world. Nala listened carefully. "When I was young," she said slowly, "I believed survival was everything. Later, I believed victory was everything. Now I know something greater." They leaned closer. "Endurance with integrity," she said. "Many can rise. Few can remain upright once they do." She warned them against shortcuts, pride, and anger. She reminded them that Allah tests people differently at every stage. Hunger tests patience. Wealth tests gratitude. Authority tests justice. Some understood immediately, others would understand later. Her children grew into adults during this period. Each followed a different path, one in scholarship, another in trade, another in public service. Nala did not force greatness upon them. She guided them toward responsibility and faith, trusting Allah to shape their destinies. Kalu remained her closest companion. Their bond deepened with age, no longer driven by excitement, but by respect and shared memory. In the evenings, they often sat together, speaking of the past without regret. "You carried burdens no one saw," Kalu once said. Nala smiled gently. "And you carried them with me, even when the world thought I carried them alone." Their marriage became a quiet example to others, proof that partnership thrives on patience, not dominance. Yet even in peace, reminders of the past returned. One day, a traveler arrived in town and asked about the legendary woman who once defeated 10 men. When he was brought to Nala, he looked surprised. He had expected someone loud, commanding, and intimidating. Instead, he found a calm woman with softened features and thoughtful eyes. "You do not look like the stories," he said honestly. Nala smiled. "Stories freeze people in one moment. Life does not." She told him nothing of her pain, her losses, or her sacrifices. She spoke instead of Allah's mercy, of growth, and of gratitude. The traveler left changed, carrying a different lesson than he expected. As seasons changed, Nala's health slowly weakened. Her strength, once her most visible trait, now faded gently. She accepted this without bitterness. Every stage of life, she believed, had its own form of strength. She increased her acts of worship. Night prayers became her comfort. Supplication replaced ambition. She asked Allah not for legacy, but for acceptance. One night after prayer, she felt a deep calm settle over her heart. "This world has given me all its lessons," she whispered. In the following months, she began preparing quietly. She organized her affairs, distributed her wealth fairly, and ensured that nothing remained disputed after her departure. She advised her children one final time, repeating the values she had lived by. "Fear Allah in ease and hardship," she told them. "Never wrong others. Never sell your faith for comfort. And remember, strength without humility is emptiness." Her children wept, sensing what she did not say openly. When illness finally confined her to bed, the town felt it before it was announced. People prayed for her recovery. Scholars visited. Leaders came to sit quietly by her door. Nala received them with gratitude but little speech. Her final days were peaceful. Kalu stayed beside her constantly, holding her hand as he had on the first day of their marriage. When she felt her strength leaving, she turned to him and spoke softly. "Do not grieve for me," she said. "I lived fully. I served honestly. That is enough." Her last words were words of remembrance, whispered with calm certainty. And then, quietly, Nala returned to her Lord. The town mourned, not with chaos, but with reflection. People did not shout her name. They spoke of her actions. They remembered her justice. They remembered her restraint. They remembered her faith. She was buried with simplicity, as she had lived. Years passed. Children who never met her grew up hearing her story, not as a tale of violence or dominance, but as a lesson in resilience, discipline, and trust in Allah. Her name became a reminder that hardship can shape greatness without corrupting the soul. And in the hearts of those who truly understood, Nala's story never ended. After Nala's passing, the town entered a period of deep reflection. There was no confusion, no struggle for power, no unrest. The systems she helped build continued to function, just as she intended. Justice did not disappear with her body because she had planted it in people's hearts. Kalu mourned quietly. He did not withdraw from the world, nor did he cling to grief. He honored Nala by living according to the principles they shared. He remained present in the community, offering guidance when needed, stepping back when others were ready to lead. Whenever people spoke to him about Nala, he corrected them gently. She was not extraordinary because she defeated men, he would say. She was extraordinary because she never let hardship harden her heart. Her children carried her legacy in different ways. None of them sought to be known as the child of Nala. They lived as servants of truth, mindful that reputation without character is hollow. When faced with trials, they remembered her words and chose patience over pride. Years later, scholars recorded her story, not as legend, but as history. They wrote of a woman shaped by responsibility, tested by loss, and elevated by discipline. They emphasized her adherence to faith, her rejection of injustice, and her refusal to misuse strength. Travelers who passed through the town noticed something unusual. There was calm. Markets were fair, disputes were resolved quickly, people spoke to one another with respect. When asked why the town was different, elders answered simply, "We were raised by an example." Children learned about Nala not through songs or exaggeration, but through lessons. Teachers spoke of her patience. Parents spoke of her sacrifices. Leaders spoke of her restraint. And the wrestling arena where she once stood undefeated, it remained, but no longer as a place of pride. It became a training ground for discipline. Young people were taught rules before strength, respect before victory. Above the entrance, a simple message was carved. Strength is a trust. Generations passed, and the name Nala never faded. It was given to daughters not in hope of physical power, but in prayer for resilience and integrity. People remembered that she began as a laborer, carrying sacks to feed her family. They remembered she endured disrespect without losing dignity. They remembered she faced loss without turning bitter. They remembered she gained power without becoming unjust. Most of all, they remembered that she feared Allah in every stage of her life, and that fear shaped her decisions more than muscles ever could. Her story stood as proof that greatness does not require disobedience, arrogance, or corruption. It requires patience, lawful effort, and trust in Allah's plan. Thus, Nala's life became a mirror for those who faced hardship. A reminder that strength guided by faith builds worlds. And when people spoke of her long after her time, they did not say, "She was the strongest." They said, "She was the most steadfast."